Hello and welcome to episode 58 of the Dynamo Football Book Club. This week we are doing The Greatest Show on Earth, a book about the 1970s World Cup finals by Andrew Downie.
This really is fantastic, and the referee has stopped it. It's all over. Brazil have won the World Cup, and there's a mass invasion of the Aztec Stadium. Pelé is being grabbed. Fantastic scenes. Brazil have won the cup, and they keep it forever. And
My name is Alistair Bond, and I'm joined by my co-host, a man with no teeth who frightens everyone with his violence, Johnny Coughlin. Johnny, how are you?
Were those lines written about me?
Oh, that's Nobby Styles. Sorry, no, Rivellino's words about Nobby Styles. But yes, Johnny, your teeth have grown back. Nice to see you. You good?
Yeah, I'm very good. Nobby Styles was a small man, so I wonder how violent these guys must have been.
I didn't realise that Nobby Styles was violent at all. He just seems quite sweet and cute, doesn't he? Bouncing around with his no teeth. But that's basically my only exposure to him, is him bouncing around with no teeth. That's all I've ever seen him do.
And his name is Nobby. It's hard to believe a man with a name like that could be threatening.
There is a scene later in this book, Johnny, and I'm glad to get it out, where the three protagonists are Bobby, and Nobby. Yeah, in the aftermath of the jewellery heist. Yeah, Bobby and Nobby are sitting around. One of those Bobbies is crying. Bobby Charlton, big crier. Who knew? Anyway, so Johnny, this book is about the 1970 World Cup. Now, this is the defining World Cup, Johnny. I think this is, as the author says, this is football's journey into modernity. The 1970 World Cup was huge. It was broadcast in glorious Technicolor, and it still looks fabulous. It was the first to feature substitutions, like voluntary substitutions not used for injury, and also the first to have yellow and red cards. It's wild to think those didn't exist before then, Johnny, right?
Yeah, so this is a game-by-game account of the World Cup. And this is really a test to our theory, Al. We've said so many times that the football is not the best bit about these books, but this book is only about the football. So an interesting shift. But did you look at much of the footage when you were reading the book?
Yeah, I did, and it looks fabulous, didn't you think? I just thought it looked absolutely... All the colours are like turned up to the max. It really looks amazing.
Yeah, and footage from the 70s isn't much worse than footage from the 90s.
No, if anything, it's better, because I think that they really just did put it through this. If we're going to make it colour, let's make it full fucking colour. Let's make it better than real. We don't want those muted greens. Those colours are popping off the screen.
Yeah, it's like a fever dream or something.
Yeah, and it looks fabulous. And you can see why... I put it to you, Johnny, the idea that everyone thinks Brazil of 1970 is the best team is because they wore jazzy yellow shirts. If they'd been bowling around in like white shirts and black shorts, I don't think people would have got so excited.
You say that, but that England-Brazil game, England looked pretty slick in that, because they're wearing all white, aren't they? Like Real Madrid style, if I recall correctly.
Well, I think I've stated before, Johnny, I'm just not a fan of a white kit. That's why I used it as an example. I just don't like them.
This one, Andrew Downie goes through every single game, all the group games, all the knockout games. This was a competition of 16 teams, 4 groups. So it takes it group by group, a little chapter at the start to kind of set out some of the background stuff. And then he just goes game by game. But it's kind of like an oral history, because it's not him the author comes in here and there with italics explaining this and that, but it's accounts from the players, from the protagonists, from the dramatis personae. Oh.
It is indeed, yes, which can throw up some very interesting observations. It can also throw up a lot of repeated information. Lot of repeated info. Did you know that Snellinger played for Inter Milan in Italy?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. How many times tell me that? 8?
He earned his caviar in Italy, was an expression that they used. Must be a German expression. But It also, you remember that TV show, The Affair, with the guy from The Wire?
Oh, yeah, yes, I do. Yes, yes.
Remember that was the two different perspectives were wildly contrasting, right? The man and the woman's perspective. That was the whole
Yeah.
original. That was the original kind of thing behind it. But there's a bit of that in this, which I quite enjoyed.
Well, actually, Johnny, I've got that written down too, but I've likened it to Kurosawa's 1950s Rashomon, a higher brow reference from me, Johnny. Yes. It was sexy, though, wasn't it? The fair show, though, much sexier than Rashomon, I can tell you that. Oh, there's a scene on a car. Oh, hello.
In Rashomon.
No. No cars in Rashomon.
So
yeah.
it's like an oral history. So we'll say, take the Brazil and England game, for example. You will have some comments from Pele, from Tostao, Bobby Moore, Nobby Styles, a lot of Martin Peters.
Yeah, we hear a lot about Martin Peters.
But I was trying to figure this out, Al. These were taken from these guys' books, right? He didn't sit down and speak to these people because he can't have spoken to Bobby Moore, because as we know, Bobby Moore died in the early 90s, but he's in this book a lot.
Yeah, that's right. He must have excavated these interviews from somewhere. I'm afraid I haven't interrogated as to where. But yeah, absolutely. He didn't sit down with all these people.
Because he got a lot of time from Pele if he sat down with him, because Pele is almost the person who speaks most after Martin Peters.
I mean, this whole book is a homily to Pele in a way. The final chapter is basically just like, isn't Pele great? It really is. And it's just a bunch of quotes from different players saying how great Pele was.
Well, Al, let's talk about Pele straight away, because that's not what two players from Romania say. Pele is a liar and a spitter, according to two fellas from Romania.
I think that comes across as, he is referenced as being very hard, but normally most people actually talk about that with some admiration. There's one point where he elbows some lad in the forehead and really gives him a crack. But I think the other players appreciate that lad just got kicked and kicked and kicked for 15 years. I think they respect it. I mean, maybe not the spitting. Yeah,
the spitting is a bit different. And so one of these Romanian guys said that Pele was a liar because he was kind of, he'd go down and he spat. The Romanian fella said, he spat on me, so I spat at him back. Which is one way of dealing with it. But yeah, you said that he elbowed a fella in the forehead, but the fella who's Uruguayan said that he elbowed him in the eyeball. And he said that, actually, this is what happened. Uruguay this was in the semi-final, Brazil versus Uruguay. And Uruguay were from a Uruguayan perspective, they were tough but fair. From a Brazilian perspective, they were dirty. And Pele said that he anticipated this fella was coming along to give him a nasty kick. So he elbowed him in the eyeball, according to the Uruguayan guy. And then the ref gave Pele a free kick.
Well, it's Pele, isn't it? Of course it is. But that's because Pele says he saw the intent in the Uruguay drives.
Yeah, he elbowed him. It was self-defense.
It was like a Minority Report sort of thing. Like, I saw a crime coming. And thankfully, Pele managed to stop that crime in time, but I still know your intent.
But so I don't think we need to go through every single game because it'd be kind of dull. But what we can do is go, group by group and round by round and talk about the bits that we thought were fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, may I start with something I thought was very fun?
Yes, you may.
All right then. Well, so we're on Brazil. So I talked about how this is like the first modern World Cup. Brazil had a training schedule which was partly mapped out by NASA and what the astronauts do. They spent 4 months training for this tournament. No wonder they were fucking brilliant. 4 months preparation with NASA fitness techniques. That's an advantage because here's the Bulgarian fitness regime. The Bulgarian players were allowed 600 millilitres of water per day. That's less than 2 cans of Coke, playing in fucking Mexico in the summer. What were they thinking? The lads said, "Oh, we just got a lot of cramp," but they wouldn't allow us more water. I wish I'd got an interview with the head of medicine for the Bulgarian team, because I would have loved to see him explain that one.
Well, the head of medicine for the Bulgarian team was a member of the Communist Party, because that's who made all the decisions, apparently.
Yeah, 200 millilitres of water with breakfast, 200 millilitres at lunch, and 200 millilitres for dinner. Wow.
The World Cup then would have been so exciting to watch or to be around because of this clash of styles, right? Which obviously is not so much of a thing anymore, and it's not a cultural clash of styles anymore. It would be kind of a tactical decision made by any given coach. But I guess in terms of the final, you have Brazil playing against Italy, and there you go. You have these incredible contrasts of style. So it must have been just so cool to see. Okay, I've never what does a team from, what do Peru play like? You know, it must have been, if you're just a random fella watching on television from Ireland, say, it must have been so much fun to watch this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would have been able to watch it on television because they made sure all the kickoff times were convenient for European viewers. So all the games kicked off at either 12 midday in the hot Mexican sun, or at 2 o'clock in the the hottest part of the day, basically. But hey, at least you viewers back home, they got the lovely, lovely images.
It's not going to be like that in the World Cup this year, is it?
No, games are going to be played like at 1 a.m. in Europe and stuff.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a bit of a shame. I wish they would show a little bit more commitment to the foreign television audiences. Yeah, also ahead of it, I think we talked about this in, what book did we do recently? Pele's book. They sacked the Brazil coach, the communist João Saldanha, before the World Cup, so he didn't have a platform to criticize the military in the event of a Brazilian victory. I thought that was kind of fun as well. And one of the big, of course, we know this, Al, because you read a book about it and I read the wrong one, but this is the El Salvador World Cup. El Salvador they're in Group A. El Salvador had beaten Honduras. This is the football war, the soccer war, and then they went to the World Cup. And boy, did they represent the El Salvadorans proudly. What was their record, Al? Do you remember?
Three defeats.
They lost
3 games.
All games. And Mexico and the USSR went through from that group. Mexico being the host, and of course USSR being the Soviet era, Russia and the rest of the Soviet states. But again, it's just so interesting, isn't it? It's just such a different world. These guys showing up from USSR to play in Mexico.
You say it's a different world, Johnny, but here's a little quote from the book. The World Cup was tainted. The conflict in the Middle East was ongoing, and Israel's presence was an additional factor. Nope, nothing really changes, Johnny. It's exactly the same. 50 fucking years ago. Well done, everybody. Well done.
It was Israel's first World Cup. And it's, so what was the 6 Days War was 1967. And so, it was shortly after that.
Oh, this is absolute catnip for you, isn't it, Johnny? Lovely political history. Oh, dripping in it like an egg, me. Totally out of my depth. You know what I've got for Israel? I've got funny names of players. Oh, Mordecai Spiegler. Shmuel Rosenthal. Imagine a little baby. What's his name? He looks like a little Shmuel. That's what I've got, Johnny. Yep, you're a better man than me.
No, I don't think. I think that Shmuel bit was much more interesting than what I said.
Little baby Shmuel. Little Shmuel Rosenthal.
Okay, how about this? Brazil versus England. So that famous game with the Bobby Moore tackle is in the groups. And how it was perceived in Mexico was Brazil versus England, angels versus devils, haughty Englishmen versus the slick Samba Salazar. And the Mexicans, apparently, they just love the Brazilians to the point where they surrounded the English hotel the night before and made so much noise that poor old Gordon Banks didn't get to sleep until 4 a.m.
Yeah, just look at Gordon Banks. Gordon Banks was not a night owl. Yes, Johnny, this was very sobering to read as an English person because it just really did convey how very fucking unpopular we are. Right, for a start, I used to live in Brazil. I had a Brazilian girlfriend, and I once said to her, which country does Brazil hate the most? Unequivocally, Mexico. We hate Mexicans. We hate them so much. So, okay. This country that Brazil hates most, yet still the Mexicans absolutely loved the Brazilians in comparison to the English. And okay, I get that, Latin American, there's a kinship there. When England played Germany, 25 years only after the Holocaust, still, no, come on, Germany, you fucking heroes, you good guys. The whole fucking stadium was pro-Germany. It's like, what did we do? What did we do? We imported fish fingers? Look what they did. But no, yeah, unequivocally, the Mexican hosts were anti-England all the way through. Everybody hates England. Oh.
Yeah, it really did. It really did come across. So I watched a good bit of that, the highlights of that Brazil and England game. And when you're reading this book, first of all, I can say, initially it's kind of this oral history, and I was like, oh God, this is going to be a real slog. But that wasn't how I felt it was in the end. As you say, it could be pretty repetitive, but with YouTube in your pocket, this makes for some pretty fun stuff. So they mention whatever it might be, and you just whip out your phone. And so to give you an example, in the Brazil Uruguay game, they go down to Uruguay in the semi-final, and then they equalise, and Tostan, I think is how you pronounce that, he plays a pass from the wing for Jairzinho's equalising goal. Have you seen that goal?
No, I don't think I watched that one.
Such a because it's described by one of the Brazilian subs. I think his name was Aldo. He described it as a divine pass, the best piece of football he's ever seen, or something to that effect. So I went and I looked at this pass, and it is a really beautiful pass. As in, the guy has it on the wing. He receives it from Jairzinho. Jairzinho kind of charges into the wing, and the guy passes it around the defender right onto Jairzinho's foot. Now, it's not like you've never seen a pass like that, but yeah, you could, more often than not, that is a missed pass. It was at a funny angle, and Jairzinho had to finish from a tricky angle. It's a beautiful goal. But yeah, with YouTube, this is a fun book, man. This is a whole pile of fun.
Well, and that's what you say as well, Johnny. And like a pass like that, imagine if you're watching that in 1970, when you're used to an absolute dirge of football being people just clogging each other on a muddy pitch, and then you're watching these beautiful lads spraying the ball around, cutting each other open. It must have been thrilling. I mean, that's what, like you said there, Johnny, sometimes this book could get quite repetitive, and sometimes I thought to myself, well, if you haven't got a story to tell, don't try telling it, which I felt with some of them. But as you say, my general goodwill towards this particular World Cup just dragged me through, and it did in the end make it a decent read.
Yeah, and I would say for people who are interested in World Cups and that kind of, this is a book that you don't have to read from cover to cover. You could kind of dip in and out, so when we'll say
the group stages,
yes,
dip out, move on.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it is fun. It is fun. But okay, well, we just skipped the group stage.
Yeah, well, the group stages were, fairly. I mean, one of the main characters in this book is Montezuma, yes, and his revenge. There is a lot of diarrhea in this book. A lot.
I actually thought that this book could have been called Montezuma's Revenge, which would be a funny name for a World Cup book, but
I believe that's politically insensitive now, and we're not meant to call it that.
Well, I guess.
But it was still okay in the 70s. But yeah, there is a lot of people fall foul. The Swedish doctor took a salad bullet for the Swedish team. Just like one rogue beer here and there will fucking cripple you, eh? I mean, England got knocked out because Gordon Banks drank a beer and then shit himself white.
But just on England, and again, so I mentioned the Brazil game. Why that was so crucial, England and Brazil were in the same group, but the prize for winning that group was remaining at sea level. And that was Guadalajara is where that game was played, and whoever won that game would remain in Guadalajara. And Brazil remained there up until the final. So they played all of their games in the same place. Whereas everyone else, including Mexico, were like going up and down. And like you said, there was teams that were there for weeks and months ahead of time to get used to the altitude. But that was a big factor, and that one really played to work to Brazil's advantage in the long term. Another thing that was really striking, Al, is any team that went to extra time and won a game went out in the next round, or lost in the case of Italy, because their semi-final went to extra time. But that happened 3 times, and each time that had such an impact.
Well, I mean, that's a contrast with modern football, isn't it, now? Because if a game goes to extra time, it's like, oh, God, just get on with it. Move to penalties already. But not in them days. Extra time were fucking brilliant, right? None of that cagey shit you have now. People were going for it.
Because it went to lots. It would have been lots. There's still no penalties.
There wouldn't have been a replay. No shit. It went to lots. Wow.
I'm fairly certain one of the games, I think it was England and Germany. Our old friend Martin Peters, I think it was. That went to England and West Germany rather. That went to extra time, and I think I'm certain he said, yeah, this would have went to lots. Was there not if there hadn't been a winner? But fortunately, the Mexicans got what they wanted, and West Germany beat England.
They certainly do. We're talking about the repetition. Did you know a player called Grabowski came on against England, Germany? Yes. I counted it, Johnny. I get told that 8 times. 8 times. It is an interesting book, but how can he have read through it and thought, does this need to be repeated again? Grabowski came on for as a substitute. He did that a lot. Bloody hell. But yes,
the one that you talked about earlier, Schnellinger making his money in Italy. Now I'm being repetitive. I really did notice that, the exact same one as you had said. That must be 8 times as well.
No, I did. It was 8 times. 8 times it was repeated that Schnellinger played it from Germans and Italians. They all couldn't get over this fucking fact. Bloody hell. Check this. This lad scored.
Yeah, okay. Mexico were expected to be quite good. They got as far as the round of 16, and then they got absolutely spanked by Italy after Mexico had been made to move away from the Azteca. The Mexicans are really upset about this.
Absolutely right. It's madness. Why on earth? The Mexican FA, they didn't have to move them. They just chose to move them outside of the Azteca, and I don't blame them. That seems absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, and then, so did you know that? So, as you said, like there's the group stages, the games that are. I suppose it only not that it only gets interesting, but the most interesting part of this is the latter stages, right? So did you know that this Italy versus West Germany? Oh, sorry. First, let's talk about England and West Germany. So they played in the quarterfinals, and this is when Banks had the now politically insensitive Montezuma's revenge. He drank beer. England were 2 up, an absolutely cantering Hormel. Bobby Charlton taken off his last ever game for England, and Alan Ball was running around saying Auf Wiedersehen to all of the West German players. And then, of course, things turn, and Peter Benetti has his slip. It goes to extra time, finishes 2-2. Did you watch any of those goals?
Yeah, I watched all of them. Yeah, I mean, as they said, Alan Ball said they got complacent and they took their foot off the gas. Yeah, they just let it go. And also, the Germans player said it was the substituting of Bobby Charlton, which is when England lost their grip in the game. But Bobby Charlton says, like, oh, I always got subbed because I was bold and I looked old. And what's more, he seemed very phlegmatic about it. He's like, I understood. Yeah, I have got a bald head, so you better substitute me.
He was saying it's because of the heat. That he was bald, that people thought the heat would be particularly punishing to him,
Did they have sun cream in the 70s? Surely they had sun cream in the 70s.
He and Beckenbauer, as I said in our draft the other day, they apparently marked each other into kind of in effectiveness, if you want, in the 66 World Cup final. Neither of them had a particularly notable game. And apparently, Charlton had kept Beckenbauer in his pocket for all of this game. And then when Charlton went off, Beckenbauer ran the show. And I think they brought on a sub. Do you remember his name?
Was his name Schnellinger? No, it's Grabowski. Oh, fucking hell.
Grabowski comes on and he changes everything. And yeah, and Gert the Bomber Muller scores goals. Schnellinger scores? Oh, no, that was against Italy.
That was against Italy, Schnellinger.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. England go out in injury time. How did you feel about that, Al? Because you said that this book really pointed out to you how much England is not liked internationally. What struck me was England were the they were the favoured team in a sporting sense, if not in a kind of what people wanted to win. But they were kind of the team that people expected to get to the final to play against because they were the defending world champions.
Yeah, and a shit-hot defence as well, right? Their defence was the envy of the world.
But Al, you say that, and then you hear the names like Newton. Hello, who?
Good old Keith Newton. Yeah, Keith Newton.
Cooper. Excuse me. Would you know all these guys?
No. I'd never heard of Keith Newton in my life. Never in my life. Totally.
But then they were saying, well, we've got Keith Newton. And it's like, was he that good? Does he warrant special mention? The fact that his name is Keith Newton as well. It's such a humdrum name, you know?
Yeah, it was very, very upsetting how how hated England is. I'll tell you what, I think in South America, it's just true. Have I ever said this before on the podcast? When I used to live in Sierra Leone, we had a next door neighbour in Freetown, and he was Peruvian. He was like a gold miner. And, we were fairly amicable, just a little wave here. How you doing, buddy? And then one day we had a party and he was invited over and he got drunk. And he fucking came at me about the Falklands War. He's like, my brothers in Argentina, you killed them. And it's like, dude, come on, man. I was 3. Like, I'm sorry about that. You've been holding on to that every time he sees me. He's like, that fucking arsehole from the fucking Thatcher, fucking Malvinas. It's like, wow, I'm sorry, dude. I mean, I was genuinely like, oh, you really are mad at me about this. Like, crikey, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Well, I was going to tell. Oh, there's a fun story about this. So as we said, Gordon Banks, had he not been injured, I'll come back to this. This is not a tournament for goalkeepers. But had Gordon Banks not been injured, I think by all accounts, everyone said they think they would have won. But Gordon Banks was watching this game in his hotel room, suffering from his diarrhea, and the game was on an hour-long delay. And so he was watching the game, and England were winning 2-0, and then the players would stroll in, and he's like, well done, lads. And we're like, no, we're out. And he's like, don't mess with me. I know you won. And we're like, no, seriously, we're out. And then he sort of Alan Ball crying. He's like, oh my God. Oh, we really are out. Oh, that's it. Yeah, he had no idea. That was funny. And one more, another of England's legends, Tommy Wright. Tommy Wright. Sounds like a Second World War hero. But Tommy Wright was crying on the bus after the defeat. But he was a young man, and Alf Ramsey came up to him and said, Don't worry, Tommy, you're a young man. There's still time. There's another World Cup in 4 years. He's like, there's no beer on the bus. Hey, lovely stuff.
But another man crying on the bus to fast forward was Pele, crying on the way to the final, hiding his tears, saying that he couldn't be seen by the other players crying because they would be so spooked by seeing the great Pele nervous. So he pretended that he dropped something and he was just looking down, hunkered over, weeping into his lap.
Well, it worked out all right for him. I did notice that a bit. Like, it seems an extraneous detail he didn't need to put in. I think he always wants to really humanise himself, Pele. See, even the great king of soccer, he has his nerves. Even I, Pele. I have nerves. I don't have a limp dick, but I do have nerves and I will cry. I will cry.
I've become quite fond of Pele of late. He's kind of like an avuncular character with kind of, what is it you said? Certain Certain
Hormones.
certain hormone.
Troublesome hormones.
Yeah. Okay, so Italy and West Germany. The game of the century, Al. Did you know that?
El Partido de Sigle. Yes. Yeah, there's a plaque at the Maracana. No, rather, at the Azteca to commemorate that game was played there. So wonderful was the game. 4-3. Did you watch the highlights of this? Fucking hell, man. Brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Beckenbauer with his fucking arm in a sling. The fucking mega hero of all time. The greatest... Oh, mate, I love Beckenbauer.
You've dislocated something, haven't you? We've talked about this before.
No, well, it was my foot. Yeah, my ankle dislocated when you gave me that dodgy pass. But, yeah, that looked different. I wouldn't have been able to play on with that injury.
Well, I dislocated my shoulder a few years ago, and I can tell you, I was not inclined to... I was playing football, in fact, and I was not inclined to play on.
Can I just pipe in one more time? Sorry, I just wanted I talked about this being not a tournament for goalkeepers. The Peru goalkeeper, Brazil played Peru in the quarterfinals. And Peru are quite fancies as a team. But not the goalkeeper. That goalkeeper, every account calls him shit. All the Brazilian players call it. His name is Luis Rubinho. I feel sorry for the fucker. All the Brazilians said he was shit. And all the Peruvian players said he was shit. I just feel so sorry for this lad. Like, he was just a terrible keeper.
All the Brazilian lads are not any more complimentary about their own World Cup winning goalkeeper, Felix. They all said he was crap as well. And then Felix pulled off a brilliant save, and they would say things like, "Oh, it was very uncharacteristic of Felix to make a save like that."
For the goalkeeper to make that, that's not like him at all.
Shocked. But yeah, okay, so it's in this Italy versus West Germany game where Schnellinger, so West Germany were losing. Italy are beating West Germany 1-0 for the whole length of the game. And then Schnellinger thought he was walking off because the game was over. He was trudging towards the sideline, but it was a corner, and they scored. He scored. Schnellinger, who, by the way, earned his caviar in Italy. And that brought it to extra time. And yeah, goal fest, 4-3. Did you see Riva's goal? It's the third Italian goal. It's a beautiful goal.
Yes, I did.
And then this guy Rivera messes up for the German third goal, but then he scores the winner. Italy scored a total of 10 goals in this competition, 9 before the final. So 4 of them were in this match. Bobby Moore had stayed around to commentate for TV, and he commentated on Brazil versus Uruguay, and he said he missed out on the right game. He would have preferred to have been commentating on Italy and West Germany because it was such a good game.
I actually like Bobby more now than I did after we read our book last week. He does come across quite well here, and crikey, the respect everyone has for him is evident.
So there's line when Banks did this famous save from Pele. He said to Banks, and I don't remember this being in his book. He went over to him and he said, "Crikey, Gordon, you're getting old. You usually hang on to those." That is a good line.
That is a good line. Yeah, that was nice. Going on to that Uruguay-Brazil game, I haven't got written down the player who said it, but one of the Uruguay players was lamenting that if only they'd had Luis Suarez playing for them, they could have won that game. Yeah, he wasn't born yet, so that's hard for it's just that's such a weird thing to say. Like, England, if they just had Harry Kane and Rio Ferdinand playing for them, they would have been way better, but they didn't because, as I say, they weren't born.
But this was the first time that Uruguay and Brazil played in the World Cup since the Maracanazo, 20 years later. So in 1950, it was 50, wasn't it? They lost in the Maracana, which was purpose-built for the World Cup in 1950 in Brazil. And of course, Brazil were predestined to win that World Cup, but Uruguay won it in that weird round-robin situation. It wasn't even a final, it was some kind of round-robin. But anyway, they got the win that meant they won the World Cup. And this was the first time that Brazil had the opportunity to kind of avenge that. But they were spooked, man, right?
Yeah, they absolutely were. Yeah, Uruguay really is in Brazil's head.
You said that your Brazilian missus from way back when said that they hated the Mexicans most, but from a footballing point of view, I'm sure they hate the Argentinians, but they seem to be pretty spooked by the Uruguayans.
Yeah, I think so. That's absolutely right, and probably more so nowadays. Now Uruguay, I mean, this was 15 years ago when Uruguay weren't such a force, but nowadays, well, the past 10 years have been pretty damn good.
Uruguay, what a remarkable country. You know, there's like they've got a smaller population than Ireland. They've won 2 World Cups. They get the quarterfinal in 1970. The last few years they've been bloody amazing. Like, what's going on there, man?
Yeah, they are the greatest overachievers on planet Earth for football, right? They are.
Well, the only one who comes close is Croatia, and they've got a much bigger population, and they haven't achieved anything close to what Uruguay have achieved.
No, that's it. The other day, that Valverde scored a hat-trick against Man City, and I was like, well, he's Uruguayan. Of course he is. Yep, there you go.
Just like, what's going on there? Like,
well, that's it. It's a little country like wedged in between Brazil and Argentina and absorbs all of it. Like, wildly good at football.
By the way, Gerson, is it Gerson or Gerson, do you think? Gerson.
I would imagine it's Gerson, yeah.
Smoking fags at half time.
Jolly good.
But Clodo Aldo scores to equalise for Brazil, and then there's this divine pass from Tostão for Jairzinho's goal, and it finishes 3-1 after Revellino scores. But Jairzinho, of course, scoring in every round of the World Cup.
Jairzinho! That's what the Brazilian commentator says, and it's like the sexiest commentary ever. Absolutely brilliant.
So then this is the showdown. Italy, Catenaccio versus Brazil, and their, what's the word they used earlier? I have it here. Batacada. The boys would just all be playing their fists against the windows on the bus and tapping on the back of the headrest. It's all this samba stuff, and they're playing their beats and they're singing along. And you really hate these guys, Al. What the hell's wrong with you, man?
Football is a war, and it's not meant to be fucking enjoyed. Get out there and win. Don't do your dancing around. Fucking dancing around.
Do you like when players celebrate goals?
I like it when players that celebrate goals of teams that I support. Yes, I'm a big fan of that.
Would you not prefer if they would just put your head down and run solemnly back to the other half and get on with it, because you're not supposed to enjoy it?
If you've scored a goal against my team, then that's how you should react. Yes, absolutely. You should look ashamed of yourself for making me sad. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just find them hard to take. Well, just because they're the fucking, I don't know, Barcelona of international football, aren't they? Oh, Brazil, aren't they great? Oh, they're brilliant. They've been living off this 1970 reputation now for 56 years. They haven't been there, he said.
They have won the World Cup twice since.
Yeah, but not in glorious fashion, though. That's what I mean. Like, it was fairly attritional and not very exciting fashion, yet they like to pretend they're this team of entertainers. Well, you were back then, lads. Yeah, so Brazil, they were tough as well. Zagallo, who is their manager, twice winning World Cup manager, said the Brazilian lads knew what it was like to be fingered from behind by their opponents.
I reread that now.
I was like, do you mean what I think? I do think you do mean that.
He did mean that.
The past is a lie, Johnny. You know, everyone we talk about, like in the old days, everyone was great, and like your granddad used to go down the post office in a suit and tie because of the dignity. But your granddad on the football pitch had his finger up the fucking opponent attacker's arsehole, like so fast, like they're all doing it apparently. It's all a lie, Johnny.
They know what it's like to be fingered from behind. That is something else.
It is something that happens in competitive sport, though, isn't it? Like, people touch your genitals, like, when you play... When I play rugby, like, it's like, people are always grabbing hold of my bollocks and shit. Like, will you stop? Thanks.
Yeah, God almighty. Okay, so... the final, it's this, whatever turgid... Like, I didn't want Italy to win this World Cup reading this book. I didn't warm to them one bit.
No, you're quite right. No, but Brazil are very much promoted as the heroes of this book, aren't they?
But also remember that the author wrote the book about Socrates. I think he probably lived in Brazil. I think he might be something of a Brazil supporter.
Yeah, a Brazilophile, if that is the right word. I'm sure it's not. Yeah, so that's it, right? I mean, the final...
Brazil go up, Italy equalise, it's 1-1 at half-time, and then Like, again, Italy are tired having played 120 minutes in the previous round against West Germany. And then Brazil kind of just destroyed them in the second half, right? 4-1. And as you say, that goal.
But that's because they've been training for 4 months as well. Do you think this was because Brazilian players at that time couldn't play out of the country? You could engineer it so you could get the players for 4 months, whereas a European team wouldn't have that opportunity, would they? Because the clubs would be, well, yeah, you couldn't take a World Cup starts in June. That's like taking the players in February or March, like, which you don't need them, do you, for the running? No, you got to take all the best players. That's fine. So I mean, they had that, and they, as I say, they had the NASA training as well. Yeah, Brazil were like properly modern in their football. Oh, I tell you what else is modern in this. They had a Adidas Telstar. Adidas Telstar. None of that Slazenger bullshit like served up by the English World Cup.
So just 4 years in between is that Telstar book is ball is the kind of the black and white one with the kind of circle, the black kind of circles, is it?
Yeah, like what you.
So that's
almost what you picture when you. Yeah, there's only 4 years between like that big orange medicine ball and like 1970s proper football.
Wow, I can only imagine the difference in kicking those two things is massive. If the visual is anything to go by, like, you know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just you look at that Telstar football and you think I could belt that, and you look at that Slazenger ball and you think, oh, I don't know if my ankle's up to that. It just looks horrible. Yeah, everything about the football in 1970 is more appealing than it was 4 years previously.
But also the footage, like you talked about this before, when we were looking at footage of the 60s for the draft or whatever last week, they just move, like certainly the 50s, but also the 60s. They're just moving at a comically slow pace, whereas that's not what Brazil in 1970 looked like.
No, it looks modern. This was the invention of modern football, wasn't it? This is where it began. I think. It is.
Yeah, and it'll be fun now to do the draft of the 70s next week, because then we've got the Netherlands, you know, and all of that. So things are going on. Things are getting sexy football-wise.
Yeah, I think, this is arguably the best decade of all, isn't it? Really, with us with our Mount Rushmore, you got like 3 of the Mount Rushmore. Well, you got all 4 of the Mount Rushmore players are active in the 1970s.
So you're saying Pele, Cruyff, Beckenbauer, and Maradona are the 4 main faces of football. It's hard to argue with that, I think. Well, you know, Ronaldo and Messi laterally, but certainly up until that point. Oh, by the way, Gerson had a very bad shot. And when he scored, he ran over and shouting in the face of whatever player used to say that to him. As somebody with a very bad shot myself, I was on Gerson's side, shall we say. I was playing with my team the other day, and we were practicing penalties, my over 40s team. And I was lining up to take my first penalty. And one of the lads says to me, "Attention, oiseau, be careful of the birds." And I duly hit it straight over the bar.
Well, that's your intro for next time. A player in comparable quality to Gerson. John Coughlin.
Yeah, that's it. They all get stripped to their underpants to celebrate by the crowd. Pele lost his boots. They were taken, but he had taken off his boots from the first half, so he still managed to keep them, but he didn't manage to keep anything else. Yeah,
I got to say, like, they do describe their return back to Brazil. It sounds absolutely fucking exhausting. Like, they're all back in Brazil going, please, can someone just show us the bed? I just want to lay down for a little bit. Like, it sounds absolutely exhausting. They were celebrating for basically a week.
Yeah, actually, imagine, yeah. And Pele not drinking, of course, all throughout.
Yeah, Pele fucked off to see his missus and everyone thought he was a traitor. Come on, Brazil.
So what do you make of this book?
Well, I sort of let you overpower me a bit. I did sort of really dislike quite a lot of this book, to be honest. When I was reading the group stages, I was so bored. Really, really bored by all the detail. I mean, just this player's... You know, some of it is great. Let's hear from Pele. Let's hear from that. But hearing from, like, the Israeli fucking goalkeeper or, like, an El Salvador forward at great length, not bothered. And as I say, some of the stories I just didn't think were worth telling. I thought I'm going to give it 2 stars.
Oof. Okay, well, I'm going to give it 3.5. But I would say that if you had to read this without visual aid, then it would take from it significantly. Then it's much drier. But it just meant that I went down a bit of a 1970s World Cup rabbit hole, and yeah, I really enjoy that. So I give the book with its YouTube accompaniment 3.5 fingers from behind.
That's what I was going to go for, Johnny. So I'm glad that you got in there first to make me not look like the gutter dweller that I normally am. Yeah. So two fingers from behind from me. Yeah, as I say, without the visual aids, it would be very dry. But yeah, just the general fucking aceness of the 1970 World Cup really does drag you through it, and there are some fun facts in there.
Yeah, and I guess it's because it's exotic, but any World Cup outside Europe is much more exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely. I don't know. Mexico is like the most World Cup country of them all in a way.
Well, this will be their third World Cup. I know they're like one of 3 hosts, but this is the third time.
Yeah, how did they? They got it in '86 for a weird reason, right? Wasn't it meant to be somewhere else? Colombia dropped out.
Colombia pulled out, too. So next week we'll do a 70s. We'll do a 70s draft, and then we'll know what book we're doing the following week. So thank you very much, folks. Thanks, Al. Yeah, okay. We'll chat to you soon.
Thank you, JC. Cheerio. Thanks.
Piazza. Ronaldo. Pelé. Yes. Oh, this is great stuff. They seem to take it in turns to give an exhibition. Jairzinho, number 7. Pelé. Up comes Carlo Alberto on the right. And it's 4! Oh, that was delightful football.
Last question. Thank you very much indeed.